Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
I got the eye of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire, 'cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. Louder, louder than a lion, 'cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. Now I'm floating like a bird.
Welcome to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and our guest is episode 4 of 5 of the Juliet Broadway takeover with none other than Paulo Szot. He plays Lance, the father, in Juliet, and is just this incredible performer. He has this amazing opera background and has brought it to a show with nothing but pop music. So he is unique in the show in such an amazing and colorful way that if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. He originally had a very sporty background when he was a kid, and as he says, soccer didn't love him as much as he loves soccer. And his amazing parents, and he tells the story of his parents, his amazing parents helped him find something new, this new love for performing, and he just ran with it and is where he is now and has this amazing singing career. And especially for someone who was told his voice was best for opera, I think it's so cool how he now finds a wonderful home in this show with nothing but pop songs. Like I said, just phenomenal. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, all the places that I am. Connect with me on there. Let me know you're listening. Leave a rating, leave a review. And everybody, go see Juliet and enjoy this episode with Paulo Szot.
Since you've been gone, I can't breathe for the first time. I'm so moving on, yeah, yeah. Thanks to you, now I get what I want. Since you've been gone.
Today's guest won the Tony Drama Desk, Outer Critics Circle, and Theater World Award for his Broadway debut as Emile de Bach in LCT's production of South Pacific, and was nominated for the Laurence Olivier Award for the same role in his West End debut. Also a seasoned opera star. He's performed all over the world and here in the U.S. with the Met Opera, the New York Philharmonic, the Chicago Philharmonic, the New York Pops, and gosh, countless others. In addition to the Broadway credit of South Pacific, he has also appeared in the Broadway production of Chicago and can now be seen on stage again as Lance Du Bois in Juliet. Paulo Szot, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
It's a great pleasure to be here, and I really love your pronunciation of my French character, Lance Du Bois. I really loved it. Thank you.
Well, I love that the joke of the last name, and I kick myself. I am still kicking myself. I did not see that incredibly obvious dad joke coming miles away when Juliet started mispronouncing Dubois as the boy, right? And then you were talking about the band you have, and then all of a sudden you start up your boy band again. I was like, oh, yeah. I love it. How did I not see that coming? It was that one.
It's one of those things in this incredibly smart and bright script. You know that all these beautiful surprises that hit us at certain points, and you're like, oh, that's why. And it's very Shakespearean too, in a way.
Well, that's what I love about it, and we're definitely gonna get into the production of Juliet and your involvement with it. But I want to back up because I think you have such a unique experience and a unique journey that brought you to this pop show. It's a pop music show, which is what you are. Your career is not pop music, as far as I know, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Backing up, you're Brazilian, right?
I was born in São Paulo, yes, in Brazil, from Polish parents that have immigrated to Brazil after the Second World War, and yeah, but I'm Brazilian, yes.
That is so cool. And And I didn't know until the last couple of years, but Broadway is huge down in Brazil. Like Brazilians love
It's
Broadway.
very big. Absolutely. We always had a tradition of Brazilian musicals in Brazil, very good musicals and very musicals that would tell the story of Brazilian music. But I think in the last 20 years, I think the biggest uh, thing that happened, that changed, and that started to bring new audiences to the theater was the international production of the Phantom of the Opera when it came to Brazil. I think it was 2001. Since then, people fell in love with the international tradition of musicals, and it's really really a big thing. I think right now, in the main cities of Brazil, like São Paulo and Rio, there are always 5 or 6 titles going at the same time. And I was just there last year doing a production of Chicago. So and the audience loves it. So it's great.
Then, when you were a kid growing up, where did you start getting into the performance aspect? Were you always sort of attracted to performing, or was it specifically singing or dancing? Or at what point, did you sort of find yourself attracted to this world?
It's because of my parents, really. As I said, they were immigrants and that just arrived to Brazil very young. And the place that they met was actually the Polish church in São Paulo. So they cultivated their music, Polish music in Brazil in São Paulo at their church. And I was inseared. I don't really remember when was the first time that I was on stage, because they always had performances of Polish music and Polish dances. And I am the fifth of a family of I have 4 more siblings, so I'm the youngest. So it was a tradition in my family to always perform during the weekends, during the church time, and that was very natural for me. And I was growing up in this environment. I of course, as a Brazilian, I always wanted to play soccer. I wanted to play ball, and I remember I really loved it, in school. And but I was always the last kid on the bench. So
The last one picked.
I remember. Yeah, so I remember one time my mom went to see the game in school, and fortunately, the coach said to me, "Paulo, you're going in because we are out of other players, but you don't touch the ball." And I, and of course, I didn't listen to him, and I did touch the ball. And in my head, I made the most beautiful goal of all, but it wasn't. So after the game, he came to my mom and said, "Mrs. Schott, Paulo loves football, because that's how we call it. Football, but football does not love Paulo back." So my mom, realizing, I believe at this time, that I would never have a career as a sportsman, she signed me up to our little art school to learn music and to learn dance. And I remember being really mad because I loved football. But after a few weeks, I realized that I also loved music. And in some way, music loved me back. So I stick to it.
I love that Paulo loves football. Football does not love Paulo back.
No. It's one of the things that only was possible back in the day, because nowadays I don't see how people would be using that kind of honesty. And it was cruel in a certain way. But in my case, it was a way of trying something else, and something else that I could be good at, and I think that's what parents want for their children, for them to be good at something and to find themselves doing something good. So although it was cruel at that time, because it was one of my passions to play ball, but I think it was very good for me at the end.
That's so cool. And I actually appreciate too that I thought the way that you originally described your parents, I thought that they met and then immigrated together, but it sounds like after the war they immigrated separately and then met at the church in Brazil. So they both found each other in Brazil.
Right. It's a very similar story, because they were both children during the Second World War, and my dad and my mom lived very close to to each other, but they didn't know. It was a region where now is Ukraine. The cities, it was called in Polish Lviv, and now it's Lviv. We all are getting very familiar with all these cities, unfortunately, because of the war that's going on right now. But in their times, they were Polish. And when the Nazi invaded Poland, they took a lot of Polish families to work to force labor camps in Germany. And both families of my mom and my dad, they had the same path. They were taken from their homes immediately and to a train, and then had to work throughout the whole war in a German labor camp. So after the war finished, their parents, my grandparents, they didn't want to go back to their city or anything like that, because it wasn't Poland anymore. That territory became Ukraine. So they had opportunities to immigrate to Argentina, to America, of course, to Brazil, and they chose Brazil, and that's where they met. They didn't know each other before. They met in the Polish church in São Paulo. So it's a very, the story of the world, very sad. Of course, I grew up knowing the tragic stories of my families, both from my mom's side and my dad's side, but in never, that's very amazing, because that's why I admire my parents so much. They never put that kind of suffering or any kind of hate into us because of what happened to them. It was very dignifying, I believe, from people that suffered so much, and then they have kids, and they they know that violence is something that you cannot bring into your children. And I believe they had the reasons for that, and I believe they were right. Of course, you learn history, you have to learn the facts, but it's a difference when you want to keep into that frustration of your life into your family going on.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a conscious decision as a parent. Yeah. There's a lot of things that you don't realize you're teaching, and you're teaching, you can teach a form, there's some of it's inherited and just who you are genetically, but like, I think you can teach a form of confidence, or teach a form of fear or embarrassment or being proud, or whatever the case is. Right. So, you can start to give your kids the fuel, and then they run with it. But the fuel you feed them is very important. So I agree with that. But at some point, somebody said, well, performing and singing loves Paulo back. So where was do you remember the moment when you or your parents or somebody was like, you know what, he's actually really good at this, like really push him to do this, send him to school, let him go this way?
I think they realized. I don't think they realized that I was good at it. They realized that I liked it, and they realized that I was happy and I could do certain things, and I was happy doing that. But I remember that I really felt, because I grew up in a very small city in close to São Paulo, but it wasn't a big city, and rarely we went to see professional theater shows and everything. We went, but it wasn't a common thing. It wasn't a tradition. My family was really focused in the Polish folklore and Polish traditions, which were beautiful. But I think the first time that I watched a chorus line that came into VHS tapes at that time, I absolutely fell in love. And that bug really, it was like, why not?
Said, I can do that. I can do that.
And that stayed in the back of my head for so many years, and then at some point, I didn't know what to do after I finished high school. So the Polish consulate in São Paulo were offering scholarships for Polish children of immigrants to go to Poland and to study the language and to get into a university. And I applied and I got accepted. So when I turned 18, I took a cargo ship because I didn't have money to fly on an airplane. So it took me 23 days to get there. from
Wow.
Brazil to go through the whole Atlantic and the Baltic Sea and
Oh
arrive
my
in the north
gosh.
of Poland and then take a train to Krakow, which was where the university was. But when you're 18, cargo ship, you're like, yeah, hey. And it was beautiful. It was the first time that I went into an ocean and I got to see all these beautiful fishes and dolphins and everything. So I was fascinated. I was absolutely fascinated to go back to the country of my parents, and that really was something of my interest at that time. And when I arrived there, the reality was of the people because they were still living in the communist regime. So it was very difficult, because they didn't have certain basic things that we're used to. Like silly things like chocolate, like meat, like toilet paper, like deodorant, like toothpaste. Basic things they had to ration. They have to really count how they use all of these things. And I was just shocked at the beginning. Like it took me like 2 or 3 weeks to get used to that. But culturally, it was a paradise. It was the place that I found other young people like me at the time that were in love with music and in dance. So I kind of all these difficulties were not important anymore to me at that time. So I found my gang. I found the people that loved what I loved, and I studied in Poland for several years. And then I got into my first professional job while studying in Poland to a professional song and dance company there. That was my first job when I was 21. So, and from that moment on, I never stopped singing. I got singing teachers and people who were always guiding me. And most of them started to guide me towards opera. They said, you had a good voice material, you should start singing opera. And I said, I'll take it. And that's, I
Interesting.
think, how it started. Yeah, how it started.
After these messages, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Wow. That you say it like, oh, that's how it started. But dude, that's an incredible journey. Literally a journey across the cargo ship, and to the other side of the world to connect to your roots where your parents were forced out during a war. I mean, good God. Like, do you look back now and you're on Broadway. So I've said this a bajillion times on this podcast. Broadway is the Olympics of theater. It's the best of the best in the theater world. So you're an Olympian in arguably the best city on earth with some of the best, most talented people with you 8 times a week on stage. And I mean, do you ever like have one of these moments of like, holy cow, man, I owe it all to my parents. I owe everything to the love and the choices that they gave me, the freedom they pushed me towards. And I mean, because you've got such a wonderful perspective on what some people have and what some people do not have.
Absolutely. And I think that, of course, most of that, it's because I had a very supportive family that loved arts, that never thought that singing and dancing were something less important than being a doctor or being an engineer. So they really supported me, and they really wanted for me to be happy. And I thank them every day, because I think that's really something that was built when I was a child. And so they were a big part. Of course, that soccer teacher too, but
Right.
It's insane when you see, especially for me that I have crossed my 50s. So it's really interesting to see how much you go through your life and how important every second is. And and I think it's something personal too. I think because I really love what I do, I honor what I do. I honor every opportunity. I honor, you said about Broadway, and it's absolutely right. It's a dream to be here. It's a dream to be at the Metropolitan Opera, but not because other theaters are not Broadway or the Metropolitans. It's something that I would give a less important performance. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Every stage and every audience for me is important, because from the moment that you step on that stage, you don't know where you are anymore, and it's this magical thing that happens to a performer, and you really forget about everything around you. It's just there in this empty space with this huge house in the dark that you don't really see the faces of people that are there, but you feel their energy back. So it doesn't really matter once you are on that stage. It's undeniable that is a dream. And once you got to leave that dream, it's something that you have to pinch yourself every day. I still do. And I try to honor my job by, being respectful to everyone that's around me, and to learn with my co-stars and to learn with everyone on stage every day. I think that's something that an actor has to have. There's never a point where you reach, I hate this word, but people say perfection, because it doesn't mean anything to me. I think perfection is a very wrong way of thinking in arts, and because you just like a human being, you have to leave space for the unexpected. You have to leave the space for what's coming next. You never reach something and then you die. You know what I mean. So perfection for me on stage is something that I never try to reach, but I try to be truthful and to do the best I can every time I'm on stage. I know it's hard. 8 shows a week is really, really hard, and sometimes you're really tired. But if you love it, there's a great. It's not my saying, but there's a great actress in Brazil, a veteran, a goddess, and Fernanda Montenegro is her name. And she always said to young students that come to her for master classes or to when she teaches, and she said that, you want to do theater? Don't. Go and do something else. If you cannot live without theater, then come back. Because it's a life of sacrifices. It's a life that if you really want to do it, because it's a work that never ends.
And you're traveling.
There's so many times that I come home and like, oh my God, I just want to forget about that scene. I just want to forget, but I can't. It's. I know actors have different ways of building their characters and different ways of approaching their profession. But for me, it's part of my life, a part of who I am. So when I come home, I'm still that person that loves the theater and loves to think about every and each scene that can improve. I can try new things, and that's what makes interesting for me. Because in my perception, if you don't do that, how are you going to do 8 shows a week?
Yeah, I agree. It becomes a job if you don't like it. And I mean, everything is a job to an extent, literally when you're getting paid for it. But yeah, if you cannot let it roll off your back or take it for what it's worth, then yeah, you're gonna get burnt out real fast. And I guess taking it now to & Juliet, like, this is a show I don't think you could ever get tired of. It seems like one of the most fun experiences, to watch, but gosh, to be part of the energy and part of this magic that is the show. It knows what it is. Which is just a party. It's a pop concert. And I was talking with Luke and Jen the other day, the director and the choreographer, about like the journey of bringing it to the stage. And it was interesting because they were like, first we start with some singing, and then we layer in some dancing, and then we turn it into a party. The whole thing is just this giant pop concert at the end of the day, with a really an amazing book, a comedic book, and a love story. It's still Romeo and Juliet on the inside, which is a classic Shakespearean tale. And I guess, so what is it now? As we are recording, it's 2023. The show opened a few months ago. And when did you first like, when did you first hear about this? And were you like, what the hell is going on? Or did you just jump all in? You're like, all right, a pop show about Shakespeare? Cool, let's do this.
No, I had no idea about the songs. First of all, when they approached me and they sent me the script, I only read the script, and I found it brilliant. I found the story that they wanted to tell was so important, and it was so wise to bring something that everybody knew, like Romeo and Juliet, and to question, what if she didn't kill herself because Romeo is dead? What if she decides to live and to find out who she is? And that alone, the argument was so powerful in my head. And I thought that there are so many young people that need to listen to that statement, especially these days. And it was very brave. So I started to read the script and I started to laugh. I started to cry. I started to fall in love with the characters. And then I saw the character that they wanted me to play, which is Lance Du Bois, as you said so beautifully.
This is the part when I say I don't want you. I'm stronger than I've been before.
And his relationship with his son and his relationship with an old love of his. So, first of all, the relationship with the son is I was going through something very personal at that time in my very close circle of friends, where a boy like Francois was struggling with the same issues that he has in the play. And I thought, if we are in 2021 at that time, if we still have to tell the story of young people that need to be understood, I want to be that one person that will help to tell that story, and that will contribute for sure for hundreds of people that will come to see the show with this pop approach, with this, of course, fun. But I really wanted to reach out for the perception of how important it is to talk about these things, and things that I don't think there will ever be fully resolved, depending of, again, from where you're born and the family that you have. But in a way, that was what really touched me. It wasn't the first moment to just to have the fun that the show obviously is, but it was to tell that story.
Bum 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 bum. Commercial break. Ba-dee-doo-doo-doo. And now we're back.
When I read the script for the second time, I added the soundtrack of Max Martin, and I was like, oh my God, this is that song, and I know this one, and I know this one. I didn't know a bunch of other songs, but I knew a few of them, and I had no idea that one brilliant man wrote all of them for these wonderful pop opera artists. So that added, to the brilliant script in a way that it was just brilliant to imagine that these songs existed already, and David West Reed was able to collect them and select them and to write a story around them for them to be telling a story too, not just to be musical numbers.
Yeah,
there is no song in the show that doesn't tell the story, doesn't continue the plot. So it's one of the brilliant things that happens when you have a wonderful writer in a musical.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was one of the things I'm so impressed with the show, is that you have all these seemingly on paper disjointed, unrelated pop songs that underlying all of it are connected by Max Martin, who wrote, the greatest number of number one hits ever, second, I believe, only to Paul McCartney. So, I mean, come on, this guy has written so many hits that everybody knows and don't know that they know that he wrote, and string them all together with a show or a storyline, the Romeo and Juliet storyline, but retold in a way now. Again, it's the what if, and it's the representation that we didn't get to see in Shakespearean times because of some of the things that actually are hinted at in the show, right? That Will Shakespeare himself may have been gay and etc. Like there are all these little things that are kind of sprinkled in, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing put together. Man, okay, so you say yes. You're like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to help create this character and be part of this show. At what point, that was 2021, you said you're reading the script. So we're coming out of 2020, the pandemic. So 2021, Broadway's still sort of on the fringe of maybe coming back or hasn't come back yet, depending on what time of the year. And so you were part of the West End production then of Anne Juliet? Were you out there, or did you come here for Broadway?
No, I just came for the Broadway production, and we did the Toronto run right before it, but I wasn't part of the West End. No.
Right. So did you know? I guess you said you read the script, added the music, but then like at what point did the magic really start to click? Because I feel like there's always that one rehearsal, that one run through, or time you run a scene where you're like, oh, now it's starting to gel. It's really starting to go there. And I feel like there's that moment, and there's also the first time with the orchestra, the Sitzprobe, right, where you're all of a sudden you're in the house and you're hearing it all for the first time, and that's when like the emotions really start coming out, right? So do you remember that time when you in your production when you just sat down and you're like, oh my God, here we go, the train's about to leave the station?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And a very funny thing happened to me because I was doing Chicago and Brazil, as I mentioned before, and the company was already rehearsing in New York without me. So I had to learn my scenes, and they were supposed to fly me to New York for a weekend, so I could I could meet the company for 3 days, and rehearse all my scenes and go back to my commitment in Chicago. So they flew me here. I arrived in the morning. I went to the room. I met everyone, and we started to work on the scenes. And I met my co-star, Mel Barry, and
she's so amazing.
To do amazing. And
so amazing.
We started to work together in Teenage Dream, and then in the scenes with Francois. But everything was like in a very super express written because I only had 3 days. It was so impressively concentrated and so good to have that amount of time because everyone was so focused, everyone was so intense, and we were able to do all my scenes and all my dialogues and everything in 3 days. And then I went back to Chicago, and I only joined the company ready 3 or 4 days before we flew to Toronto for the whole run.
Wow.
And so I didn't really have a rehearsal process. I only got to have a stage process with the actors, with costumes, with the music and everything else. But of course, when you mentioned the Sitzprobe with the band, with the orchestra, it was the moment that I realized, oh my God, I am inside a pop concert. And that is fantastic. I always love challenges, and I always love doing something new to my career. As I said, I started as an opera, and then South Pacific came into my life. And then after that, I started to do cabaret shows. I was already very happy to be able to break those little boxes that people love to put you in. And you are only allowed to do this kind of roles, and you're only allowed to sing this kind of music. And I always question why I'm an artist, and I want to sing what I like. I don't want to sing what you determined for me to be good for me. And actually, only after South Pacific, that experience that was the one that gave me the possibilities of exploring all the kinds of music that I wanted to sing and to throw myself into new things. So
close to my heart she came, only to fly away, only to fly as day flies from moonlight.
what happened with and Juliet was one of those experiences where I said, I have no idea how to sing these songs. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I like it. So, and of course, nobody achieves anything alone. So I had a lot of help from everyone, from the director, from the music director, and from my colleagues to find the right amount of the sonority of my voice, how I would go for things, how dramatic, and how funny. So I think it was a recipe that we had to find out how to bake together, adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we finally got into a formula that it works. For me, it works.
And so I think the magic missing ingredient, if I had to guess, was the cod piece.
Absolutely. The cod piece. I arrive on stage after the cod piece arrives. So the cod piece arrives on stage first, and then comes Lance. So it's a very important thing, and the reaction is every night. It's amazing, and I think it's a very part of who he is, who Lance is. And it's undeniable to think that Lance is a passionate man, but we see him the first time as a very angry man too, with his son, not understanding what's going on. And he only starts his first change in this whole arc of his when he meets again Angelique. He remembers what feels like to have love again in his life. So he starts to change, and he starts to he wants to become a better man because of love and because Angelique. And he wants to become a better father only because of that change, meaning that love is everything.
Well, much like the cod piece, it's rough exterior, soft on the inside. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You're saying.
Yeah. The relationship with Angelique and, played by Mel Berry, God, the two of you together are so hilarious. So like the comic timing you have, knowing, I think, well, you had the Toronto out of town run, but I guess knowing how little time you had together with the actual development process and the rehearsal process, it just speaks to how talented you both are, because it's so.
But listen,
so
I was so lucky to have someone like Mel who really knew the nurse, who did it the West End, and she was not only doing the play, she was familiar with the whole process of the readings, of the writing. She was there from the beginning.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a blessing to have someone like Mel to be there and to guide me, because she's such a wonderful actress, a very open and very generous person on stage and off stage. So it was really a blessing. I am very lucky to be with her and try to fit into her story, because Angelique is someone that everybody falls in love with, and as I said, it's just a blessing to. It was a blessing during the whole period of rehearsals. At the same time, she was so great, because only the great ones do that. The great actors, they don't impose for you to do things that they are used to. They give you the liberty of developing, and she's totally open to finding new things, because there's a new actor. So it's very obvious that a new actor will bring new things. And she was so open, and she was so brilliant in all that process. And we still work on it. We still work on these things, and it's alive. And the fun that you mentioned is real. We love to do those scenes together. We love to have fun together, and we love to dance together, and we love to be silly together. So it's something that you wake up in the morning, and like, I want to do that scene again, and it motivates you to go to work. Absolutely, yes.
That's beautiful. All right. So there are 3 questions that I ask everyone to wrap up every episode. And I'll start with the first one for you, which is just very simply, what motivates you?
Love to what I do.
What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Don't be afraid of certain things. Don't be afraid of taking chances, and always work hard and hard and hard and hard.
And harder.
Yes.
All right. This is the hardest question then. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
And Juliet.
Have you been able to like swing out and watch it yet? Have you watched any production of it?
Yes. During our little break from Toronto to Broadway, I was on a trip to Paris, and I was on a business trip to Paris, to the Paris Opera. One day, they canceled the meeting there, and I said, I'm going to take a flight. I'm going to see the production at the West End. And it was the best thing I did, because it was a Saturday. I could see 2 shows, and I could, see from the outside how brilliant this show is, which gave me so much more excitement, if that's possible, about going to Broadway and doing this for the whole year.
That's really cool, because I was going to say, is it different? Was it different? Because of course it's different being on stage and being in the audience, but knowing that you were going to get to bring that and be part of the stage, the creation of the stage production here on Broadway, being able to sit in the audience and feel the energy, feel and listen to the laughter, literally, of the people are all around you laughing and being into it and crying. And what was that experience for you like, sitting in the middle of the people that you were about to perform to?
It was very comforting, because I know people that are like me. We are on stage sometimes, and we like to sabotage ourselves sometimes, and think, oh my God, they hate me. Oh my God, they're not having fun. And that experience, watching the show from the other side, from the audience side, gave me, the assurance that I was totally wrong, because people enjoy every minute of it, because the show is really good. No matter what your interpretation, no matter how brilliant you think you have to be on stage, it will work, because the script is fantastic and the whole concept, it's very intelligent. So, and most of the people that are seeing that are seeing it for the first time. So, but it gave me too the importance to remember that not to assume that people, not because you've done it a million times on stage, the people are going to know. You have to be very clear about everything. So it was incredible. I felt so lucky to be able to see the show, as you said. But at the same time, as I knew I was doing that show, and I knew the show, the moment that you sit in the audience, you kind of forget that you were on that stage doing those roles. You don't even remember the lines that that actor that is doing your part is saying. At least I am like that. I kind of try to really enjoy every second of what I'm seeing as it was the first time. I don't try to think, oh my God, I know what's coming next. No, I want to be surprised. And I think once you set your brain to be surprised, you are. And it was great. It was great to see the show.
That's amazing. Yeah, very few people get that opportunity. I'm so happy for you that you got to experience that, because it probably shaped a lot of what you're bringing to stage now. So where can we find you online, on social media?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and on my website. I'm not a generation of the social media, but I had to adapt. So people could find about my jobs and my schedules. So, but I'm there. I'm out there. Just click my name and you'll find it.
Yeah. All right. You can get me. We're similar age, similar generation, but I'm still on the web at thetheaterpodcast.com, at TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, of course. Leave a rating, leave a review wherever you're listening now. And Paulo, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, gosh, you guys are gearing up for award season as we're recording this, and you got 8 shows a week in this incredibly high energy show that, I mean, taking the time out to talk with us. Just thank you. It's been so much fun.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.